So first things first, the show is called On My Gay Wizard Shit. Am I gay? Technically, yes. Am I a wizard? I am working on it. I found a gray hair on the back of my head like a couple weeks ago, which I think is a pretty promising start, but I haven't figured out if that's like, if the physical manifestations of age and mortality are going to lead to actual magical powers. Like, I'm still figuring that part out. So far the answer is no. So why wizards as opposed to witches? I'm going to ignore centuries of folklore from cultures around the world and just give you all of my very personal and very subjective feelings about the difference between witches and wizards. It's not determined by gender. I'm glad you're having such a good time already. It's not determined by gender, but it does have like gender flavors to it. And so to me, witches they're mischievous, they're mysterious, they're confident, they're alluring. They wear black lace stockings as they wade through bogs under a full moon, and they dissect and repurpose corpses, and it's really gross but necessary. And they're very sexy about it the whole time. Whereas with wizards, my impression is that they can make very impressive and beautiful things happen around them, but if you pull back the curtain, all you're going to find is like a knobbly little man wearing a bucket hat and spangled shorts, and like that's kind of the essence of their personality. And like, I want to be a witch so badly. But hi, welcome, come on in. So like, I really want to be a witch, like God, I would love that. I want to be Morticia Adams, but like spiritually, I'm pretty sure I'm Pugsley, and like I just have to live with that. So some background on the work itself. As some of you know, most of these paintings are based on collages that I've been doing over the past 5 years. And I got really into collaging during COVID. I love them. I was thinking about the similarities between the human body and environmental and botanical structures, and how organic systems echo each other. So I was thinking about how, like, if you map the arteries and veins in an animal and the xylem and phloem in plants, and like the river systems in a watershed, on an abstract level, all of those things visually are going to look pretty similar. So I was thinking about that, and I started using medical illustrations and field guides to juxtapose human anatomy with other pieces of nature. So I was putting like lungs and pulmonary systems surrounded by thistles and cacti and like threatening prickly plants. And in doing that, I was trying to process the immediate threat of the virus to our individual bodies, and also the environmental threat of our human institutions utterly failing us and leaving us to sicken and die throughout the pandemic, which, don't worry, they're still doing it. So I'm not a tarot person, like that's not really my thing, but I do treat collaging as a sort of divination, where I'll start with a loose concept or a collection of source material, and I'll pull and arrange and reorganize until visually it just feels right and feels satisfying. And once I have that, then I'll try to figure out if the final piece actually reflects what I was thinking about while I made it, or if it says something else entirely. This is also how I have approached art making since I was a wee teenager painting my dreams. Stop laughing at me. Just kidding, keep going, I thrive on it. Since I was like a teenager, I was painting my dreams, and dreams are really just like the scrambled version of what you've been thinking about or seeing or processing that day. And often their meaning was only revealed to me with the passage of time. So using collages as a preliminary sketch for paintings felt like a very natural way to bridge those two mediums, because painting is what I've always loved to do, and while I enjoy collaging, I've needed to find some way to make them work together. So when I'm making collages, I try to stay away from directly photographic imagery and only source material from like illustrations and art catalogs and any image that's already been hand-mediated in some way before it goes into the collage, and that gives it like a painterly feel as a whole, or at least that's the hope. But ultimately, they are still just a bunch of tiny parts cobbled together, made by often long-dead people. Like a lot of the elements in this one are from medieval manuscript illuminations. So whoever made that is long turned to dust. So I feel like I am Dr. Frankenstein, and I'm digging up these scraps and I'm splicing them into my own little monsters, and then painting is the electrical storm that makes them flesh. And I'm trying to like breathe life into them by painting them on a larger scale and using more expressive painting techniques than I've done in the past. I used to work, historically I've worked very tight and very precise, and it's been hard to break out of that, but I've been trying to push myself to maximize patterns and visual noise and really fill up the space and fill up the canvas, and also be a bit looser and more intuitive while painting the individual elements so that I can focus on the painting as a whole and make decisions as to which parts of the reference image need to be changed or smoothed out or eliminated entirely in order to make the piece fit more cohesively. So thematically, a lot of these paintings are about power, what it feels like to be on the wrong end of it, or how it manifests in forces of nature in the cycle of life. So I'll do some pointing. So Jaws, obviously, and where's one? Bottom fish with all the fish and the plants, and Girl Fresh, which is on the wall behind you, the two heads and the clouds. Those are all about like the deep ocean and sky and places that I physically can't access. I have a lot of birds and fish, because birds and fish can travel in worlds that I can't get to, and so I'm like, if I were just a bird, like I would want to go fly in the clouds, and if I were a fish, I'd see what the hell is up down there, because I don't know and it's scary. And so they're just about worlds that I can't get to, and so I'm trying to take what I know of them through like human research and try to build my own construction of them. Some of them are also me thinking about how much power do we actually have when it comes to determining our own life path and our own circumstances, because we have the power to utterly destroy ourselves in the world, and we're doing a great job of that. We're like really powering through. But I also firmly believe that we have the power to heal ourselves and each other. And for me, making art is very much part of the healing process. So some of these paintings are a little bit more personal. The self-portrait in the corner there was, I made that when I got abruptly fired from my last job. It's fine, I'm in a much better job now. But I was like I was so angry, and I felt so betrayed and confused because I still don't really know why I was let go. And I would like lie awake at night and feel the rage just like coalescing like into this molten lava in my core, and I felt like I was kind of fossilizing. It was like turning me to stone from the inside out, and also trying to carry that through like while looking for a new job and going through interviews and just being like, I'm normal, it's fine, like I would love to work for you. This is great, this is totally cool, it's not a problem. So just that's what that painting is just about, that feeling and that tension. The one with the duck hanging ceremoniously and the flowers, that one I made when I was very abruptly dumped by a partner of 4 years. So the flowers were actually ones that he had given me, I think, for our 4-year anniversary, in which he promised me, he said, like, here's to many years to come. And then a week later, just kidding. And the duck was hanging in his apartment the last time I visited. I didn't know it was the last time. But his roommates had just like trussed it up, and they were draining it to cook and eat later. And at the time I was like, oh, that's cool. It's like a very macabre kind of like spooky little thing to have. And I thought it was cute, and I was taking pictures of it and painting it. And then later, very soon, it kind of took on a little bit of a different meaning. So that painting is called Hung Out to Dry, and it's about feeling just sort of like tied up in a bundle and left out in the cold. Also, don't worry, much better partner now, much happier, it's all good. But as a breakup painting, it very much helped me process that and be like, okay, now it's on the canvas, and now I can move on. Also pinned in the very corner, that carnation right next to the wall text. Like, you know that feeling when you go to the gynecologist, and you're just like that's what that's about. So I started thinking specifically about theatrics and like wizardry, I guess, when I made Yes, I Was a Horse Girl, parentheses, wizard drama. And to answer the question that I have inexplicably gotten multiple times, yes, I was a horse girl. That's like why it's in the title. I don't know why people keep asking me that. Like, why would I lie to you? But the source material pulled for that painting, especially for the horse and the hand, are from a woodcut that, like, I don't know who it's attributed to. It's pretty old, and it was a woodcut from a battle scene that was in this book about witches and wizards that my friend gave to me to use for the illustration. So I chopped it up, and I never actually read it. So I don't know who's fighting whom, and I don't know what the battle's about. I don't know what they're fighting for or against, but I really enjoy the pose of the horse and like the tension in that hand. And I had a good time like trying to make it from like a black and white line image into something that looks actually fleshy. And the gateway on the bottom is taken from a photo of an old theater set from like the 60s. It was very randomly sourced. But I think working in theatrical production, which I have done for quite a few years, has influenced my approach to painting in that sometimes I feel like I'm just creating a stage and like placing actors on it, and they're frozen in their own little moment, and I might have a story in my head while I'm painting it, but I also want to leave it open that like, if you don't want to make up your own story and move the little figurines around in your head, that's what I want people to be able to do. Stage fright, which is this little bunny here, is a bit of an older piece, but it's also about being put on display and being put on the spot and feeling like in a moment you have to sort of construct yourself and like make a presentation of yourself for the outside world, and just the feeling of being like caught with your pants down, so to speak. So I'm thinking about performance and identity as performance, and especially gender, and the interplay between performances of gender and sexuality when those identities may feel ambiguous or contradictory to each other. So the question is like, what do you do when you don't have a script to follow for your life experiences, or if the scripts that are available to you are less mainstream or harder to find? Usually what happens is you'll try to contort yourself into the existing ones, and then you'll wonder why they don't quite fit, or maybe you like don't even realize that they don't fit. You just think everyone feels slightly out of place and slightly uncomfortable all the time, and you just dismiss your own experience, and you're like, I'm overreacting. Like everyone feels that way about Beyonce. Like it's obvious that in Pirates of the Caribbean, Keira Knightley is the hottest one. Like there's no question about that. Like what's the debate? But it turns out like other people disagree with you. This is about being bisexual. But once you realize that you're actually not crazy and the scripts aren't always for you, the choice is, okay, now you have to either make your own scripts or you have to seek out the more obscure ones, and you might not be able to do that. So a lot of these paintings are about, quite a few of these paintings are about constructing an illusion of myth and tradition where one might not actually exist. The rituals are intricate, which is the tall one on the wall right there. That is about ritual performance as a way to feel in control of yourself and your environment when you're very much not. So I was thinking about the history of harvest sacrifices and rain dances, excuse me, and other rituals that humans have invented over centuries and millennia as a way to influence the weather, even though most of the time those rituals are just for the humans and they don't actually have any effect on the weather. The difference now is that we actually are affecting the Earth's patterns and climate and weather, and we're doing an absolute shit job of it. And we need to figure out how to stop it and undo that damage. So the figure in that painting, hi, welcome in. The figure in that painting is based off of John William Waterhouse's painting Circe and Vidiosa, and yes, Skylar did pose for it, which I appreciate very much. And he has this big basin full of poison, and he is pouring it directly down into a muskrat skull, and I hope you're all picking up what I'm throwing down when I say that. So also I'm thinking about identity as performance, and even like while looking at this work, and even while I was writing this talk, I keep running into this point of tension, which is that as a person by nature, I'm very introverted and kind of shy, but I'm also I'm very much an open book, and if you know me, you know I am an oversharer, and I have kind of a filtration problem with my mouth. So I like to joke that I inherited my mother's disdain for authority, but I also inherited my father's capacity for shame. So so what that means is I will, if I think a teacher's being unfair, I will say something and call them out, but then when I get in trouble, I will cry about it. And that's just that's just been my whole life. And so in navigating that in my work and trying to decide how much of myself am I putting into the work, am I putting out in the world, what is necessary to share and what's just kind of compulsive, Like, as an example, I did have a piece in this talk that was just a rant about European toilets, but I took it out. So I'm working on it. But like, in navigating those contradictions, what I keep asking myself is like, am I actually refining who I am as a person, or am I just packaging myself for consumption? And also, how do you tell the difference when you live under capitalism? Like, what am I doing? So the answer for this show, for OMGWS at least, is I am doing whatever I fucking want. And some of these paintings are very much just for fun. So like this carnation instant mantis in the corner here, literally just for shits and giggles. I had some carnations that started to look like this. I thought, that kind of looks like a praying mantis claw. And I painted them, and I painted a praying mantis over it, and I made a pun for the title, and I was like, that's good enough. I just wanted to do that. Around the corner is a little painting of an aloe plant, and it's called Aloe Love. And it's just for fun. Roma gave it to us, and I thought it was very pretty, and I wanted to paint it and have a good time with it. And then Pussy Station in the back corner, the orangish one, that one was based off of a collage originally. So the big shape, the white and blue shape in the middle is actually a cross-section of a nasal cavity. It's upside down, so those are two teeth at the top. And there's like octopus and crustaceans on it, hence the title, which is just Pussy Station, a play on that. And it was literally just a collage of me thinking about fish kind of smell bad. That's it. Like that's the whole concept behind it. But I very much like had a great time actually doing the painting and reworking that and like being a little looser and having more fun with it. So I make things because I have all of these like gross human feelings that come with living, and making the things helps me process the feelings. But the reason I am very grateful to have an opportunity to put them up in a room and share them with other people is so I can connect with people, and I want to give people something to point at and go like, I felt that too, like that's exactly what that feels like, and have that moment of understanding and like alleviate a little bit the crushing loneliness of existence that I think is just kind of inherent in our experience. And so like the best part, especially about having the show up during Open Studios a couple of weeks ago, when hundreds of people were coming through the gallery, I was sitting at the desk, and most of them had no idea that I had actually made the work in the room, and so they were just talking about it very loudly in front of me. They're like, I wonder who made this, and I'm like, it was me, and they're like, we don't even know who could have made this. And I'm like, it was me, and they're like, weird, I guess we'll find out someday. But it was fascinating to hear everyone's reactions and interpretations to the work. Like there was this one group of kids in like, I don't know, early 20s, I would say, that was going around, and one guy like he was like very certain about every single painting, and he like very loudly gave his explanations of every single one, which was so much fun to hear. Like he was looking at the one of Skylar, and he was pointing to him and going like, that is clearly the face of someone who has like left the oven on, like, and see the title, it says the rituals are intricate, like that is someone, he forgot a very important part of the intricate ritual, and like that's what this means. And I was like, that's not at all what I was thinking, but like good on you for like really reading into it and having a good time. But my absolute favorite feedback that I received was these two older women came in, they looked around the whole show, they sat on the benches and like had a very long and serious and quiet conversation, and I couldn't hear any of it. And then as they were leaving, one of them leaned into me and said, there is no joy in this room. And I was like, huh. Nothing? You don't see any? Okay. And what are you going through in your life that like nothing speaks to you as like any sort of celebration or like indulgence in like the lushness of life? Like I know it's not all like puppies and rainbows, but I'm like, you didn't like my jokes? Like there's some of that. But it's so interesting to see what people take away and also like what they don't take away. The last thing that I want to talk about is the concept of alchemy. So Merriam-Webster defines alchemy as a medieval chemical science and speculative philosophy aiming to achieve the transmutation of base metals into gold, the discovery of a universal cure for disease, and the discovery of a means of indefinitely prolonging life. And like spoiler alert, none of that's happening. Like That's not gonna work, no matter what the billionaires say, like we're not going to live forever, we're not gonna turn stuff into gold. NFTs are a scam, but I think that the fact that that's like a concept and a phenomenon that has persisted over centuries really does speak to our persistent habit of believing in the possibility of radical change for the better, and I think that's like kind of beautiful. And the second definition of alchemy, which is a power or process that changes or transforms something in a mysterious or impressive way, very much encapsulates how I feel about painting. The magic of painting for me lies in the ability to create my own worlds and perspectives and landscapes and monsters and to share them with other people and to like be able to speak in a visual language that other people will understand, even if the translation isn't always like, it's not always exact, like sometimes stuff gets lost, but that's okay, that's part of the fun. And it's also how I feel about consciousness in general, because I think like what is a living being if not something that's more than the sum of its parts? The show has a motif, excuse me, of skulls and like pieces of skulls and facial bones that are floating in space with like either empty space or patterns or other life forms occupying where the brain would usually be. Because I think our skulls are basically protective containers of this mysterious and unquantifiable essence of the self. And they're the structures that remain recognizable long after the rest of the flesh is rotted away. But like, what is that essence of self? Like, what actually is in the brain? Like, who the fuck are we? What are we doing? Because like physically, we're just sacks of meat roaming around and bumping into each other and like consuming and being consumed. But we all have that something that makes us conscious, discrete individuals that have the capacity to experience and interpret the world around them and to share that experience with other people. And I don't know what to call that besides magic. So what I'm saying is that life is beautiful and it is terrifying and there's so much softness and so much anger and we have to love each other, and I think that the way to do that is to destroy capitalism and kiss girls on the mouth and realize that we are the earth and the earth is us and we have all the ingredients, we just have to combine them accordingly. And that's it, that's my talk. Thank you.